Hello, lovers of the world. This is Sinta speaking. I really love TXT's latest album, The Chaos Chapter Freeze. So I really want to sit down and talk about it more in detail because I did mention it in my last Music and Monthlies video, but I didn't really go into as much depth as I would have preferred. So here I am sitting down making a standalone video talking about and exploring more of my opinions in greater detail regarding this album. So let's get into it. So the title track, Love Song, gave me a lot of pop punk vibes. I really loved the texture of TXT's voices in the song. I felt like it was definitely a result of both post-production magic and that their voices are actually being pushed to directions and in ways that was not really previously possible in their previous music, or that their previous music did not really make them do. That makes sense. So I feel like, so this side of them has been hinted at in the past, but I feel like this is the first album that really typically pushes it to the forefront and really showcases that this is something that they can do now. Because like, obviously as boys, when they debut, they were on the younger side, but as they grow older, puberty hits. So their voices drop, and now I feel like they can do more interesting things just because their range has kind of like opened up, I guess. And I think the producers made a great decision in highlighting and emphasizing this vocal evolution, particularly in this track, I think. And there are parts where they sound really aggressive, and they really leans into like the angry side that is very prevalent in pop punk. I have a feeling that this is kind of like the way the TXT are going to go into their comeback cycles, right? So like you have first the cutesy, fluffy, wholesome song, in which case that was, Blue Hour and Crown. And then the second one's going to be a little bit angstier, a little maybe more rockier. And that spot is filled in with Runaway and obviously Love Song. And so since the comeback that came after Runaway is something like Can't You See Me, which is straight up murder, we have an idea of what to expect for their next comeback cycles. I feel like that's a really interesting way of going about it. The only other group that I can think of with a similar style in terms of comeback cycle is maybe Red Velvet, where they've got their Red, which is poppier and more upbeat and brighter, and then Velvet, which is I guess more R&B, a lot more either toned down or like darker and more mature. So I like it. I'm interested to see how they go off. So the rest of the project I found was very surprising because it was auto-tuned to hell. Anti-Romantic, Love Song, and Magic, they all have like normal, typical big hit, Hybe style of composition and sound engineering. Then you get to the rest of the project. Anything after Magic, you realize that they've decided to really make this album very conceptual. Like, arguably all K-pop albums are supposedly conceptual, but this one had a distinct musical direction and style. It was like the way that they've used autotune was very well thought out and intentional. And yet I was still surprised by how much they did use the autotune, because they were obviously going for, like I said, a specific sound, but like, there was no reprieve from it. Even the ones that had not as much autotune still had some to an extent. It's such a jarring switch to their discography, or even to their latest release, Minisode 1, which tended to lean more on TXT's just natural singing voices, I guess. Throughout the listening session, or my first listen, I kept waiting for a song to come up that actually did feature more of TXT's natural singing voice, but it did not come. So now I feel like I realized the purpose of Minisode Blue Hour. In the beginning, I was confused as to why it was called Minisode. I guess I just assumed it was just part of their like larger narrative / larger universe. But I understand it to be a break from this continuous narrative / universe that they are building up to. Hence why Blue Hour was called Minisode, like a mini episode, and this is called a chapter because this is actually part of that larger story. This chapter is meant to be viewed as part of their ongoing Dream Chapter series, I guess, like alongside it. So I'm really interested to see how that pans out. I have mixed feelings about the track Magic. I think I like it, but I'm not too sure. It gives me Butter by BTS vibes. I don't know if I like it because it sounds like butter or if I just like it for what it is. Magic is fine, but there are definitely other songs that I find more interesting and more compelling to listen to, such as Ice Cream. When you listen to Ice Cream and you take the stylistic autotune out of the equation, it's a lot easier to imagine that Stella Jang had a hand in writing the song, because the song itself is quite playful and fun in the way that Stella Jang writes her songs, but I guess the autotune vocals get in the way of you making that direct connection, if that makes sense. Speaking of random people in the writing credits, can you imagine my surprise to find that Ashniko was credited in the album track listing? Frost is definitely the kind of song that she would make though. My surprise mostly comes from Hybe's decision to choose her sound specifically to be specifically part of this specific TXT album. That makes sense. I never would have made that connection myself. I guess I just need to get used to the amount of strings that Hybe can pull now, considering they're like super fucking powerful at the stage. They're seriously the Disney of the K-pop industry. In conclusion, I really love this album. It's different to what TXT have done, and it pulls off. I feel like they were taking a risk and it pulled off. I want to see, not necessarily, here's the thing though, even though I enjoyed this body of work, would I want TXT's sound to be like this from now on? Absolutely not. I think the selling point of this particular album is like, one, obviously, how cohesive it is and consistent. And two, it stands out from the rest of TXT's discography. I really wouldn't want TXT to kind of go further with this sound from now on. I would like to see them branch out and try out different things. Maybe go back to their original sound. But I do not want them to stick to this like heavy use of stylistic autotune, because that would probably drive me crazy. Such a big fan of TXT's natural voices that I feel disappointed whenever Hybe does overproduce or sound engineer their voices a certain way that I feel like are not really necessary. I noticed them do it in the past, and the album, like I said, intentionally done to create an effect, create an experience, but I wouldn't want to hear this forever, if that makes any sense. Like, it pays off in this one, and I would definitely consider this album for like my top favorites of 2021, but I don't know, I don't think I can handle it if TXT just sounded like this from now on, no matter how good the album is. So yeah, in conclusion, the Chaos Chapter Freeze by Tomorrow by Together is one of the best K-pop projects I've heard in 2021 so far. Hope you guys give it a listen. Let me know what you guys think. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed and want to see more of my work. I post every week on Mondays, or at least I try to. All my social media links are in the description, as well as my Ko-fi and Patreon page if you guys want to support my work. I'll see you guys next week.